is a motion hearing summary for the Karen Read case. So let's get right into it. Hey everybody, welcome back to my channel. I am going to do this review with these silly looking headphones on. The audio in my videos always drive me nuts, so I am going to attempt it with these. So let's see how this summary ends up. Setting that aside, let's move on. This was a motion hearing for the Karen Read case. We learned a few things during this motion hearing. First of all, we're introduced to a new defense attorney for Karen. I noticed a lot of people in the live chat during the motion hearing were making comments like,
"Oh, this prosecution attorney is proving the case for defense.
They're just proving Karen's case.
Or why is this person allowed to ask so many questions of this witness?"
If you were one of them that was confused, it was because it actually is one of Karen Read's attorneys, and so of course they're going to ask a lot of questions because they're trying to qualify this individual as an expert witness. Mr. Elsley, he brought up some comments that the Commonwealth had made during the decision for a case which was the Commonwealth versus Dowsney, or I don't remember the last name, another case. And let's just take a look at the video clip.
The judge decided not to hold an evidentiary hearing and ruled that Trooper Sanford's opinion was admissible at trial because there was a factual basis for his opinion and it was therefore reliable. The reason I bring that up, Your Honor, is just to state what my expectation was and why I went in the manner that I did. And of course, Mr. McDermott was gracious enough to send an email that said, hey, if you want to change what the court expects the hearing to be, you need an affidavit and you need a motion, and that's what I did. So in conclusion, Your Honor, it is the position of the defense that the papers that we submitted, and I won't get into the argument, would obviate the need for an evidentiary hearing, much in the way that the Addy case obviated, where the party was given an opportunity to make the arguments in terms of the motion. So my main point in raising these two in conclusion is I would appreciate if Your Honor could state a basis for the denial of the, what I will call the Addy process, and we will of course respect Your Honor's decision and proceed in the manner Your Honor directs.
Your Honor, I believe you have the discretion to make the decision that a Lanigan hearing is appropriate. I didn't have the benefit, but Your Honor certainly had the benefit of a voir dire prior to trial. Your Honor had the benefit of watching the trial testimony. Your Honor had the benefit of appreciating that it wasn't Rule 14 that was complied with prior to that. A report was provided merely 2 days ago. And that report, if the court has an opportunity to see it, is in conflict in many ways from the testimony at the voir dire, and it's in conflict with testimony at trial. One thing that is constant from the voir dire through the report that we received 2 days ago is that there is an absence of methodology. There is no basis in methodology to support the opinions that are being provided by this witness. That fundamentally supports a decision that the defense should meet their burden, be compelled to provide a witness so that they can see if they can satisfy the Lanigan-Daubert standard.
Your Honor, he delved into the substance. I don't plan on belaboring it, but if I could just be heard.
Sure.
Thank you. Appreciate it. The methodology, and if we're going to go to the testimony, you will, of course, everyone will hear it firsthand, was established the first time. It's pattern recognition. It's well established in the law. And that was what Dr. Russell testified first trial. That's in her report. And as we're to proceed, that's what will happen. That's first. The trigger for the last time was a Rule 14. But Your Honor, in the June 20th transcript, on pages 59 and 62, said, on 59, Your Honor said, you, the Commonwealth, raised Daubert-type concerns. And on page 62, Your Honor said, I have to exercise my role as gatekeeper. So it was clear that it was Daubert. The methodology was established. So I just wanted to respond in that manner for clarity of the record.
Okay. Additionally, after I made the finding that I made, I heard trial testimony. So based on everything, in my discretion, we're having a hearing.
Understood, Your Honor.
There are your findings.
Thank you.
Okay.
Appreciate it.
Okay. All right.
Now, who is this expert they're questioning? Well, it is actually Dr. Russell. If you followed along during the trial for the Karen Reed case, she was an expert that was brought in during the trial. Of course, they had like a voir dire to see if she was even qualified. And then they decided to go ahead and allow her to testify as an expert. But apparently, they're still continuing on with not wanting her to be an expert in the next trial, which is coming up next month in January of 2025. They're questioning her ability to be an expert. And honestly, from seeing her from the actual trial beforehand, I think she was very qualified to be an expert witness for defense. I usually don't ever cover any of the person's qualifications. I sometimes will put in like a comment here and there, but I don't like to cover all of the individual's experience because, well, for one, I don't want to lose your guys' attention, and two, it's kind of boring. And I always do encourage you guys and all my viewers and listeners and subscribers to take the time to get on over to the trial and listen to it for yourself. This is not a legal opinion. These are just my reviews of this trial. So with that, Dr. Russell was an expert witness who had testified in Karen's trial the first time, and she was an expert with determining a person's injuries as specifically dog bites. She was an expert witness for dog bites, and they went through her qualifications back then in that trial, and I felt she was a pretty qualified individual, many, many years of experience in the medical field, doing autopsies and analyzing dog bites to the dogs that the police officers use. So she is the individual who gave that expert testimony. Through my review of her qualifications back then as just a viewer of this trial, I felt she was quite educated and could give a good rendering opinion, expert opinion on what she felt John O'Keefe's injuries were and if they were actually from a dog bite or from Karen hitting him with her vehicle. What we find out about Dr. Russell during this motion hearing is, honestly, I think she's even more qualified than before. A lot of the specific information we get from Dr. Russell is way more detailed now on her qualifications than we got the last time. So I know this motion hearing was basically to check to see if she's even qualified or smart enough or has enough education or experience to be giving this expert testimony. I think it actually proved, yes, she is more than qualified. So as I was saying, she was questioned about how she came to the opinion that John's injuries were caused by an animal or a dog biting him versus a car hitting him. And she explained that she looked at the photos, she looked at the autopsy photos. I mean, they gave like a question, did you look at this? She said, yes. Did you look at this? So on and so forth. And so she's explained, like, based off of what I saw, based off of the types of injuries, that this is why I rendered the opinion I did. I am going to play a clip of Mr. Brennan, he's the new prosecuting attorney, and let you come to your own conclusions about how you feel about him. So let's take a look at that.
In the emergency room.
Yes.
In the emergency room, you see all types of injuries, don't you?
Yes.
You see physical injuries, yes?
Yes.
Emotional injuries,
Yes.
people who overdose, perhaps they're drunk on drugs,
Yes.
alcohol.
Yes.
So you cover a wide array of different types of treatments.
Yes.
Now, you must have seen a number of broken bones when you were in the emergency room caring for different patients, correct?
Thousands.
Arms, legs, toes.
Yes.
In light of your extensive experience in the emergency room, and looking at all of these broken bones, that doesn't make you an expert in orthopedics, does it?
Emergency orthopedics, yes.
Oh. Have you ever been qualified as an expert in orthopedics?
No, I've
Isn't
never.
orthopedics a specialty in medicine where there is specific training?
Yes.
And people who become orthopedics or orthopedic surgeons, they go through rigorous education specifically to be an orthopedic, right?
Well, orthopedics involves more than just setting fractures or diagnosing fractures. Orthopedics involves things like bone tumors, bone cancers, a lot of other parts of orthopedics, not just trauma.
I am an expert in emergency orthopedics, I believe.
So you have decided that you are an expert in orthopedics?
Emergency orthopedics.
Emergency orthopedics, is that a specialty that you get a fellowship in, or somehow you are deemed an expert in any way?
It's not a specialty that has a fellowship that I'm aware of.
I see. So you are proclaiming that you yourself think that you're a emergency room orthopedic.
I have expertise in emergency orthopedics, yes.
Are you an expert in orthopedics?
The whole field of orthopedics, no.
And you don't have any specialized degrees in orthopedics, do you?
No.
You would agree that somebody who's gone through the rigorous requirements of being an orthopedic and qualified, they'd have much more experience in that than you, true?
In general orthopedics, yes. I have a lot of experience in orthopedic trauma related to emergencies.
Have you ever been in any court where you've ever been qualified as an expert in orthopedics?
It was never an issue.
But I'm asking you, have you ever been in any court, state, federal, this country, any other country, where you've been qualified as an expert in orthopedics?
No.
Now that you got to see him in action, how do you feel about him? I will share my opinion at this point. I was hopeful that maybe this guy wouldn't irritate me like Lowley did. And that he is almost just as annoying as Lowley. However, not quite, because Lowley's coughing drove me up the wall. So we'll find out with time what this guy is like. But so far, I'm not excited about him. In the beginning, I saw him in another motion hearing earlier in the month, or maybe it was like in November, and he wasn't irritating me then. But for some reason today, I guess seeing him with somebody on the stand definitely showed a different side of him. And I just think he's very, it's going to sound childish, but I just think he's very weaselly. Just like, oh, this guy is going to irritate me, and it's going to be his voice that irritates me. What drove me nuts about this particular clip is that he's just going on and on with Dr. Russell, like trying to say, like, you declared yourself an expert and you're not really one, are you? And to be declared an expert, there's no certification. You don't go in front of a board. You technically do deem yourself an expert once you've had enough experience in a field or having a study in a field. Like, you can declare yourself an expert. So in my opinion, yes, she's an expert. She's had experience in this field since the 1970s and is still practicing, still holds her license. I know he kept trying to focus and be like, but you're not an orthopedic doctor. You're not an orthopedic doctor. It's like, yes, she's clearly not. She's telling you she's not. But we already know he's trying to focus on that to be like, look, you can't allow any of this testimony because first, she does not have the degree for this specification. Now, I understand his focus on that makes total sense, but she is herself saying, I am not an expert in orthopedics. I am an expert in orthopedics in the emergency room because that's what she has training in. She has more knowledge on multiple things. So yes, she has to look at these things when a person comes into the emergency room, because she has to try to figure out amongst a variety of specialties, what is wrong with this person and how can we treat this person as quickly as possible. So you are going to have some knowledge of different things. Like, okay, this person was bit by a snake. Like, clearly we need to get some kind of anti-venom for him. This person was bit by, it looks like some type of animal, like a dog or a possum. Just like whatever it is, like, you're having to analyze this stuff to try to treat this person to keep them alive. So another time he was continuously picking on her for her study in the pattern in dog bites. And she tried to explain to him, this isn't a medical term, patterns for dog bites. Like, this is something I created. I am the one who studied this. I am the one who created this and given lectures about this. This is why you're not going to hear this terminology with other people, because I'm the one who uses this and I'm the one who created this. And he's just like, well, I read this book here and it didn't say anything about that. And she's like, yeah, it wouldn't. And he's like, I mean, it just like continues stuff like that. Oh, well, this article, what article did you read that you got this information from? And she's like, I've read lots of articles. Like, if you want to question me about a specific article, I can give you an opinion on that. So he gives her this article, and she's like, yes, I did reference that, or whatever she says. And he's like, well, they didn't say anything about dog bites in there. And she's like, well, there was a mention in it. It's not a study. The book is not about dog bites. So that is why there's not much information in there. Or another time he had questioned about different conferences as she had attended. And what was the specification? Did they specifically talk to everybody about dog bites? And she's like, no, not just about dog bites, because you have to fill an entire hour with this lecture. You can't just focus on dog bites because, well, not everyone really is going to care much about dog bites. And so there was a variety of different topics they talked about within these lectures. I myself have given lectures about these dog bites. So annoying, but I totally understand why he's doing it. So, I will reserve my annoyance with him for his actions because I know what he's trying to do. We understand. But it's just like, here we go again. I don't know if I'm going to be able to handle listening to him. So we'll see what I do. I may just give like an overall summary on the Karen Read trial because I really want to keep focused on the Menendez trial until I'm done with that. So that's all I have to say about Mr. Brennan. A little bit of information she gave in this hearing, which I wish she would have used before, but it really honestly doesn't even matter. But I thought it was pretty interesting. She described how the bites were made in his clothing and how there is the cut is like an entrance and exit. So like the clothing looked like they've been pulled instead of just like sliced. Mr. Brennan was picking on her about her not being, like, do you have any expertise in DNA? And she's just like, well, I have some expertise in it. And this is, again, he's like, but you're not an expert on it. And she's like, I didn't study that specifically, but I have experience with it. And just because there wasn't any dog DNA on where they swabbed his body, like, doesn't mean there wasn't dog DNA on him. So I wouldn't just rule out and say, no, there's no dog that bit this guy. Like, he has the pattern bite for a dog bite. It is different than a human bite. She really went into pretty good detail explaining how she looks at these patterns and how she started recognizing them and then started teaching other doctors about it as well to help them in their services. Another reason why she came to those conclusions is because of the way the injuries were created or how they looked on the body. They had a certain pattern to them. There's different ways the body looks or is injured when cut by glass or like a laceration from a vehicle. In hers, what she saw in the pattern, some of them look like where a dog would bite but didn't get like total grip of the skin. So it's just kind of like the teeth run down the skin, or, in other spots you can see like the top of the jaw and the bottom of the jaw to where it did clamp down on him. The sad part is, even though this hearing was 6 or 7 hours, I know it was the entire day, hearing didn't finish. And so they scheduled the continuation of this for January 7th, I believe. I want to say one smart person in the chat stated something like, oh, well, she never got to see John's body, so her opinion is worthless. Mind blown with that comment. Like, how do you come to a conclusion like that? Based off of that logic, we could all say, well, we never saw John's body, so technically everybody's opinion that he's dead is worthless. Really? Then we had people in the chat making comments about Karen's medical issues. Why are you paying any attention to her medical issues? This has nothing to do with her medical issues. Stop with your negative, disgusting comments. Like, keep your ugly negativity to yourself. Now, I don't think I ever said in those trials that I think he was killed by the dog. I don't think he was killed by the dog. I think the dog played a part in the death, but I don't think that the dog, Chloe, was the reason why John died. I myself, I'm not looking at it and saying, no, it was the dog that killed him. It's just like, look, there's obviously other factors here that took place that aren't being factored into his death. And this is a big problem. If he was never in the Albert home, how did he end up with this dog attacking him? Maybe the dog got out and attacked him. who knows? But still, after the expert testimony came in with the accident reconstructionist, and they explained how John would have flown through the air if he had been hit by a vehicle, it just didn't work out to where he ended up, is where they found the body. Some kind of quarrel took place in the Albert home, and more than likely, I would say it was in the basement, because there was contradictory testimony amongst the witnesses about what upstairs is and what downstairs is, and where certain pictures were that people were looking at. Even if they disqualify her as an expert witness, myself looking back at the trial and just saying, okay, let's just say she was never even allowed in the first trial, it still does not change my opinion of Karen's innocence. I think it helped solidify it, but it didn't change it. It wasn't going to then put in doubt in my question of like, well, is she innocent? It didn't. So even if they do try to pull it, it didn't affect me enough to say like, oh gosh, if they block her testimony, Karen really may go to prison for this. I don't feel that way. And the reason why too, my main one was really just the medical examiner's opinions on the injuries on John's body and or lack thereof certain injuries to prove prosecution's case. So even if they were to remove Dr. Russell's testimony, I still wouldn't change my opinion on Karen's innocence. If you were one of the ones that actually watched the entire motion hearing, what did you guys think about it? If they were not to have allowed her in the last trial, would that have changed your opinion on saying she's innocent or guilty? I am working on another trial, the Menendez brothers trial, so I want to get back to that as quickly as possible. Thank you so much for leaving your comments and questions. I always love hearing from you guys. I wish I could communicate with you within my videos for others to hear, but we are left to comment and chat back and forth through those. So thank you so much, everybody. Thanks for watching. Bye.